Your Honor, this unfit mother has systematically alienated my grandchildren from me. My mother-in-law, Diane Pearson, sobbed dramatically in the courtroom, her voice carrying just the right tremor to sound convincing. She practiced that sob. I'd heard her rehearsing it in my courthouse bathroom just 20 minutes earlier, not realizing I was in the stall next door. Was she really about to present this performance in front of my colleagues without realizing where we were? Judge Harrison, who'd been my mentor for 15 years, looked up from the filing with barely concealed bewilderment. Mrs. Pearson, I need to clarify something. Are you aware that you're suing Judge Miranda Blackstone? The courtroom fell silent. Diane's lawyer, a young man fresh out of law school who clearly hadn't done his homework, shuffled his papers nervously. Diane herself seemed oblivious to the significance of the question, pressing on with her rehearsed testimony. Yes, that's my daughter-in-law. She sniffed, dabbing at dry eyes with a handkerchief. She thinks just because she has some little job at the courthouse, she can keep my precious grandbabies from me. Judge Harrison's eyebrows climbed toward his hairline. Some little job? He turned to me. Judge Blackstone, would you care to clarify your position for the record? I stood slowly, straightening my robes. Your Honor, I'm the Chief Judge of the Family Court Division for the past 3 years. Before that, I served as a family court judge for 7 years. I've presided over approximately 4,000 custody cases, including numerous grandparent rights petitions. The color drained from Diane's lawyer's face as the reality of the situation hit him. He leaned toward his client, whispering urgently, but Diane waved him off. I don't care what fancy title she has, Diane declared. She's poisoned my son against me and won't let me see my grandchildren. It's been 6 months since I've laid eyes on them. Judge Harrison looked at me with a mixture of sympathy and professional curiosity. Judge Blackstone, given your position and expertise, I assume there are substantial reasons for the cessation of contact. This was it, the moment I'd been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. Your Honor, there are indeed substantial reasons. I have extensive documentation, including police reports, medical records, and video evidence that I'm prepared to present. Video evidence? Diane scoffed. What video evidence? This is ridiculous. The nanny cam footage from August 15th, I said quietly, watching her face transform. The one that shows you giving my 3-year-old daughter Sophia a double dose of her ADHD medication to calm her down for your church fundraiser. The courtroom was so quiet you could hear the court reporter's fingers freeze over her keys. That was just a mistake, Diane started. In the footage from September 22nd, I continued, my voice steady despite the anger bubbling underneath, where you locked my 5-year-old son Nathan in your basement storage room for 2 hours because he accidentally spilled juice on your carpet. You told him there were rats down there that would bite him if he made noise. He needed to learn. And October 10th, when you drove both children to the mall without car seats, going 85 miles per hour on the freeway while video calling your sister to brag about how you don't follow ridiculous government safety rules. Judge Harrison held up his hand. I think I've heard enough to warrant a full review of this evidence. Mrs. Pearson, do you have legal representation present? Her lawyer stood on shaking legs. Your Honor, I was not made aware of these allegations. Mrs. Pearson assured me this was a simple case of a controlling daughter-in-law. Counsel, Judge Harrison interrupted, not unkindly, I suggest you request a recess to review this new information with your client. But Diane wasn't finished. She stood up, her carefully constructed grandmother facade crumbling. You've always been jealous of me, Miranda, ever since Michael chose me as his mother over you as his wife. I actually laughed. I couldn't help it. Diane, that doesn't even make sense. Michael and I have been happily married for 8 years. You turned him against me. Before you came along, he called me every day, visited every weekend. Your Honor, I interjected, if I may present Exhibit A. I pulled out my phone and connected it to the courtroom's display system. a perk of knowing exactly how everything worked. These are text messages between Mrs. Pearson and my husband from 2015, a year before we met. The screen filled with message after message. Stop calling me at work, Mom. I'm not coming to dinner. You can't keep showing up at my apartment. I'm changing my locks. This is not normal. I'm 28 years old. Stop tracking my phone. Those are fake, Diane shrieked. They're verified by phone records, I said calmly. Which brings me to Exhibit B, the restraining order Michael filed against you in 2014, which you violated 3 times. Judge Harrison was reading through the file I'd submitted with increasing alarm. Mrs. Pearson, it says here you broke into your son's apartment and rearranged his furniture and installed hidden cameras. I was worried about him. He was dating an inappropriate woman. Your Honor, I continued, after Michael and I began dating, Mrs. Pearson escalated her behavior. She hired a private investigator to follow me. She called my workplace making false allegations, which, given that I was already a judge, did not go over well. She attempted to access my sealed adoption records from when I was a child. How dare you bring that up? Diane snarled, dropping all pretense of the grieving grandmother. You're not good enough for my son. You're not even his real type. He always dated blondes before you. You must have trapped him somehow. Is that why you told our wedding guests I was pregnant? I asked. Even though our first child wasn't born until 2 years later. Or why you wore a white dress to our wedding and tried to sit in the seat reserved for my deceased mother? The young lawyer was practically sliding under the table. Judge Harrison looked like he was watching a train wreck in slow motion. Let's move on to the specific incidents that led to the cessation of contact, I said, pulling up more files on my tablet. On June 3rd of this year, Mrs. Pearson was babysitting while my husband and I attended a judicial conference. We came home to find she had cut our daughter's hair. It was too long, Diane protested. Into a buzz cut, I finished. Because she said Sophia's beautiful curls made her look ethnic and ungodly. She used Michael's electric razor. Our 3-year-old was traumatized. Then on July 19th, I continued, she took both children to get baptized at her church without our knowledge or consent. We're Jewish, Your Honor. Both children came home confused and upset, saying Grandma told them Mommy and Daddy were going to hell. Judge Harrison's jaw had dropped slightly. She performed religious ceremonies on your children without permission. The pastor didn't know, I clarified. She told him we asked her to handle it while we were too busy with work. We have his sworn affidavit. This is persecution. Diane stood up, shaking. You've always hated me. You've poisoned Michael against his own mother. A real wife would bring families together, not tear them apart. A real grandmother, I said quietly, wouldn't feed her grandchild medication to sedate her. Wouldn't terrorize a 5-year-old with lies about rats. Wouldn't endanger their lives by refusing to use car seats. Your Honor, the young lawyer pleaded, could we please have that recess now? But Judge Harrison was looking through more of my evidence. Judge Blackstone, this psychiatric evaluation. Court ordered, I confirmed. After the basement incident, the diagnosis is narcissistic personality disorder with paranoid features. Mrs. Pearson refused the recommended treatment. Because I'm not crazy, Diane screamed. You're the crazy one. What kind of mother keeps children from their grandmother? What kind of wife turns a son against his mother? The kind who protects her children, I said simply. Your Honor, I have 17 hours of nanny cam footage showing Mrs. Pearson's behavior. I have documentation of every incident. I have witness statements from neighbors, teachers, and other family members. I even had a letter from Michael's therapist explaining how his mother's behavior has affected his mental health since childhood. Lies. Diane was fully unraveling now. All lies. You coached everyone. You probably threatened them with your judge powers. Judge Harrison had seen enough. Mrs. Pearson, I'm going to stop you right there. Suggesting that Judge Blackstone has abused her position is a serious allegation. Do you have any evidence? She doesn't need evidence. Diane spat. Look at her, sitting there all smug. She probably planned this whole thing. She knew I'd eventually sue and. Actually, I interrupted. I tried mediation first. 3 times. Mrs. Pearson walked out of every session when the mediator suggested she might need to respect boundaries. I pulled up the mediator's reports on the display. Each one detailed Diane's escalating behavior, her refusal to acknowledge any wrongdoing, and her threats to take those babies away from that unfit mother if it's the last thing I do. She threatened to take your children? Judge Harrison asked. Repeatedly. We have it in writing. Text messages, emails, even a letter she sent to my husband's workplace saying she was going to prove I was an unfit mother and gain custody herself. Because you are unfit, Diane shrieked. What kind of mother works full-time? What kind of mother puts her career before her children? When I was raising Michael, you had 5 nannies in 6 years, I said. Michael told me. You fired each one when he got too attached. Your Honor, the poor lawyer tried again. My client is clearly emotional. Your client, Judge Harrison said sternly, has made serious accusations against a respected member of the judiciary without a shred of evidence. She's admitted to multiple instances of endangering minor children. And based on what I'm reading here, she's lucky criminal charges haven't been filed. Actually, I said, reaching for another folder, about that. Diane's face went white. You didn't. Child endangerment, reckless driving with minors in the vehicle, and administration of controlled substances to a minor without parental consent. I listed. The DA is reviewing the case. I recused myself from any involvement, of course. You vindictive little. Diane lunged toward me, but the bailiff was faster, stepping between us. Mrs. Pearson. Judge Harrison's voice boomed. You will control yourself in my courtroom. She ruined everything. Diane sobbed, real tears this time. I just wanted to see my grandchildren. Is that so wrong? Wanting to see them? No, I said quietly. But drugging them, terrorizing them, endangering them, and trying to indoctrinate them against their parents' wishes. Yes, Diane. That's wrong. Judge Harrison had heard enough. I'm prepared to rule on this petition. Mrs. Pearson, your request for grandparent visitation rights is denied. Furthermore, based on the evidence presented, I'm issuing a restraining order. You are to have no contact with the minor children or their parents. Any violation will result in immediate arrest. You can't do this, Diane wailed. I can, and I have. Additionally, I'm referring this case to Child Protective Services for review and recommending that the criminal investigation proceed. Counsel, I suggest you advise your client to seek both legal representation for the criminal matters and psychological treatment. The young lawyer was already packing his briefcase, probably calculating how fast he could drop this client. This isn't over. Diane pointed at me as the bailiff moved to escort her out. You think you've won, but I know people. I'll go to the media. I'll tell everyone how a corrupt judge is keeping a grandmother from her babies. You do that, I said calmly. I'm sure they'll be very interested in the nanny cam footage, especially the part where you're explaining to my 3-year-old that mommy is evil because she won't let grandma move in and fix this broken family. As she was let out, still screaming about corruption and stolen grandchildren, Judge Harrison turned to me. Miranda, I'm sorry you had to go through this. In all my years on the bench, I've rarely seen such a clear-cut case of grandparent misconduct. Thank you, Your Honor. I'm just grateful she filed here, where everything could be properly documented. Though I must admit, when I saw we were in your courtroom, I did wonder if I should mention our professional relationship. He smiled grimly. It wouldn't have mattered. The evidence speaks for itself. Though I am curious, did she really not know you were chief judge? She's never acknowledged what I do, I admitted. In her mind, I'm just the woman who stole her son. The fact that I have a career, let alone one in law, doesn't fit her narrative. After the courtroom cleared, I sat for a moment in the quiet space. My phone buzzed. A text from Michael. Lawyer called. Is it over? Yes. I typed back. Restraining order granted. Criminal charges likely. We're safe. His response was immediate. Thank God. And thank you. I know how hard this was. Hard? Yes. But as I gathered my files, my carefully documented evidence of a grandmother who'd lost sight of love in her need for control, I felt nothing but relief. My children were safe. That's all that mattered. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd spent years protecting other people's children in this very courthouse, making decisions about custody and visitation based on the best interests of the child. Today, I'd had to protect my own, using every bit of legal knowledge I'd accumulated over my career. As I left the courthouse, I saw Diane in the parking lot, still ranting to her bewildered lawyer about judicial corruption and stolen grandchildren. She caught sight of me and started to approach, but the bailiff stepped out behind me, hand on his radio. Ma'am, the restraining order is already in effect, he warned. She stopped, her face twisted with rage. This isn't over, Miranda. Yes, Diane, I said quietly. It is. And for the first time in 2 years, I truly believed it. My children would grow up free from her manipulation, her dangerous behavior, her twisted version of love. They'd be surrounded by people who understood that love meant protection, not possession, boundaries, not control. As I drove home to my family, my safe, intact, protected family, I allowed myself a small smile. Diane had been right about one thing. I had used my judge powers. I'd used my knowledge, my experience, and my understanding of the law to protect my children from someone who claimed to love them while putting them in danger. And I'd do it again in a heartbeat.